All right, everybody, hello and welcome back to another video here with Wholeo Awakening and Thunder Dragon Neigong. Today we're going to be continuing in our series on the 7 Hermetic Principles. We'll be looking at the principle of polarity. As always, before we begin, be sure and check out all the links and information we have below. Like, subscribe, follow, hit the notification, whatever is applicable, wherever you're watching this, and be sure to check out the links to our website where we have our classes, courses, consultations, and all of that good stuff. With that said, let's go ahead and get started here. The principle of polarity. This one is the most obviously related to taiji, qigong, the internal arts. This is yin and yang, the key to balance in life and practice. In this 5th article of our series on the 7 Hermetic Principles and their relationship to the alchemical path and the internal martial arts, we now arrive at the 4th principle, the principle of polarity. This principle explains one of the most unavoidable truths in existence. Reality expresses itself through opposites. Wherever there is one pole, the other must also exist. Cannot be one without the other, for they are one. Where there is light, there is darkness. Where there is up, there is down. Where there is heat, there is cold. Where there is expansion, there is contraction. Where there is life, there is death. This is taiji. This is the dance of creation. Polarity is the very concept of opposites. Polarity and the very concept of opposites is typically thought of as two separate and different forces seeking to dominate or cancel out each other. That's how we often think of it. If two things are opposite, well, they're at odds with each other. This is a very simplistic and ultimately flawed view. Polarity is, in fact, the very structure by which creation becomes intelligible. Without contrast, nothing would be known. For example, without cold, we could not define hot. There would be no way to describe it. Without stillness, we could not define movement. Opposites provide the necessary framework through which experience becomes possible. The Hermetic teachings express this with great clarity. Opposites are not separate things, but are two ends of the same continuum. So opposites are one thing in different degrees. A vital aspect of the principle of polarity is that it does not claim that opposites are enemies. Rather, it teaches that they are different degrees of the same essence. Heat and cold are not separate substances. They are variations of temperature. Light and dark are not separate forces. Darkness is simply the absence of light. Hardness and softness are degrees of density and elasticity. So this principle reveals something deeply important. Polarity is not division, but relationship. In the internal arts, this truth becomes immediately practical. Strength without softness becomes stiffness. Softness without strength becomes collapse. One must contain the other, and refinement comes through learning how to shift between them without losing coherence. That is the essence of taiji practice. Taiji is the embodiment of polarity. Of all internal systems, taiji most perfectly embodies this principle. The word taiji itself refers to the dynamic interplay of yin and yang, the two poles that generate all phenomena. The taiji symbol, known as the taiji tu, depicts this relationship in a way that is both simple and profound. Two fish, one dark and one light, endlessly circling each other. As yin reaches its peak, it begins transforming into yang. As yang reaches its peak, it begins transforming into yin. Even more revealing is the detail that many overlook, that within the darkest yin there is a seed of yang. The little white dot in the thickness of black. And within the brightest yang, there is a seed of yin. In the white area, thickness of the white area, there is a spot of dark. Each one contains the other. This expresses a universal law. No extreme is pure. No pole can exist without the potential of its opposite. This is why taijiquan is not simply soft, and also not simply hard. It is a system of constant transformation between polarities. Polarity in movement. The hidden opposite must always be present. True taiji practice requires continual awareness of paired opposites. Every action must contain its counterpart. When the arms rise, the root must sink. When the body expands, it must also contain inward containment. When stepping forward, there must be backward awareness. When issuing power, there must be internal listening. This is not merely philosophical, it's a structural reality. A practitioner who only rises becomes top-heavy. A practitioner who only sinks becomes dead and stagnant. A practitioner who only expands becomes stiff. A practitioner who only contracts becomes weak. Taiji demands simultaneous duality, the ability to express one pole outwardly while maintaining the other inwardly. This is why the classics emphasized rootedness beneath lightness, stillness within motion, softness within strength, and strength within softness. The body becomes like the taiji symbol itself, always shifting, but always balanced and always whole. Pang, Sung, and Ding as polar skills. The internal qualities we cultivate are themselves expressions of polarity. Sung is release, but not collapse. It is softness with structure. Pang is fullness, but not rigidity. It is expansion with elasticity. Ding is listening, but not passivity. It is receptivity with readiness. Each of these qualities exists between two extremes. If we lean too far toward one pole, the quality becomes distorted. True cultivation means refining ourselves into the balanced center where opposites cooperate rather than compete. Polarity and the middle path. In life, the principle of polarity reveals why so much suffering arises. Human beings cling to one pole and reject the other. We see this in so many areas. We desire pleasure, but we reject pain. We cling to life and fear death. We want strength, but refuse vulnerability. We want independence, but we reject responsibility. And yet nature is built on paired forces. To reject one pole is to reject reality itself. You cannot have one without the other. This is why wisdom traditions consistently emphasize the middle way. Jesus speaks of walking the straight and narrow path rather than deviating to either side. The Buddha teaches that liberation is found through the middle path, not through indulgence or self-mortification. Both are expressing the same cosmic law. Balance is the doorway to freedom. In alchemical terms, extremes scatter the energy, balance concentrates it. Polarity in human life. Complementarity, not confusion. The principle of polarity also applies to human roles and relationships. This is another area of great confusion in our modern society. Masculine and feminine are polar forces. They are not identical. They are not meant to compete for sameness. They exist to complement and complete one another. Polarity does not imply superiority. It implies function. They each have a different function, hence different roles, different strengths, weaknesses, different attributes, different qualities. When polar forces harmonize, life becomes creative and stable. When they attempt to erase differences or dominate each other or become equal to each other, imbalance emerges and conflict follows. The alchemist must therefore learn not only to cultivate internal balance, but to respect polarity in the outer world, in relationships, responsibilities, seasons, work and rest, discipline and surrender, in all things. Life and death, the ultimate polarity. Perhaps the greatest polarity we encounter is life and death. Modern society often attempts to deny death, to resist it, or to escape it through obsessive grasping and technological fixation. Think of all the people, all the talk going on nowadays about living forever and biohacking and uploading ourselves, our consciousness into the internet or whatever. This is all nonsense from educated idiots who have no grasp, no understanding, even on a fundamental level, of what reality is, of what consciousness is, of what the soul, the spirit are, of what the mind is, what intellect is. Here again, childish nonsense. Death is not the enemy of life. It is its boundary, and therefore its meaning. Without death, life would have no urgency, no depth, no sacredness. To embrace polarity is to accept that decline and renewal, decay and growth, ending and beginning are not mistakes in the universe. They are the very rhythm by which the Tao moves. The practitioner who fears death cannot fully live. The practitioner who accepts death finds deeper peace and therefore deeper vitality. Taijiquan as the training ground of polarity. In taiji push hands, or guaisho, polarity becomes unmistakable. If you resist force directly, you are defeated. If you collapse, you are defeated. Victory comes from balancing the poles, yielding without yielding too far, sticking without clinging, issuing without overextending. A skilled practitioner is one who can shift between yin and yang seamlessly, without hesitation and without emotional attachment. This is not merely martial skill, it is spiritual maturity that can be applied to all areas of life. The alchemist's work, uniting the opposites. Ultimately, the principle of polarity teaches us that wholeness is not found by eliminating opposites, but by integrating them. This is the core of internal alchemy, to reconcile the divided aspects of the self until the practitioner becomes internally unified. When yin and yang harmonize, the mind becomes clear, the emotions stabilize, the breath deepens, the body becomes connected, the spirit becomes steady. This is why the internal arts are not simply about health or fighting ability. They are methods for transforming human life into harmony with natural law. Balance is not a weakness, it is power under control. So there we have the principle of polarity, yin and yang, taiji. In the next article, we'll examine the principle of rhythm, exploring how polarity generates cycles, how all things rise and fall like waves, and how mastery comes not from resisting rhythm, but from learning to ride it. Another very important concept in our practice. So with that said, everyone, again, be sure to check out all the links below. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever needs to be done there, and check out the website where we have our classes, courses, consultations, and a plethora of other educational material. Everybody, thank you so much for watching, and take care. We'll see you next time.